I'm Jolie here for Seconds Out, and today we have the Ben Askren versus Jake Paul preview. Huge fight week. We've got a lot of content coming up about this fight. And listen, we've had the open workout so far. I've got the Zoom interviews later. Make no mistake about it, this fight is causing a lot of hype in the boxing world, in the MMA world, and there's a lot of talking points to get through. Is it good for boxing? We don't know just yet because the YouTubers have fought each other. The YouTubers have fought the basketball player. But now he's going to fight a true fighter, which means we're going to have true fan bases from the likes of the MMA world and the boxing world. For the first time, it's a pro fighter coming up against a YouTuber. Now, of course, he's a pro MMA fighter, and Jake Paul and Ben Askren are going to be fighting in a boxing ring. But this fight is huge, and this will definitely determine many fights to come in the next few years, because the way this fight's bubbling up, and love it or hate it, the last time I felt this way about a fight, not necessarily in excitement, but I'm very intrigued. The last time I was this intrigued was Carl Frampton, Jamel Herring. And for the hardcore boxing fans out there, to compare a YouTuber and someone who's never stepped in a boxing ring to that, the amount of hype it's getting, it's understandable, but it shouldn't make sense. Now, this is why when I said the question, is it good for boxing? It could be, and it could cause trouble in the future, because if you're getting people who have never fought coming into the ring, making more money, doing more pay-per-view sales than people who put blood, sweat and tears into boxing, then that, of course, is going to be a problem down the line, because we're going to see more celebrity fights, more people who don't actually know boxing, and that's a problem, because then the rawness, the beauty of seeing the best fighters in the world fight each other is going to happen less often, because the money is now going to be where the celebrities are. This is all, of course, riding and potentially relying on whether Jake Paul wins on the weekend, so it's hard to say it's a good thing for boxing, but on the other hand, you can always use the argument of the audience that he'll bring in. Now, I'm not saying every single Jake Paul supporter and subscriber is going to watch this fight and then watch, I don't know, Billy Joe Saunders Canelo and then start watching Josh Taylor versus Ramirez. Like, I'm not saying they're going to stick on and watch every boxing fight there is, but even if 5% of his 20 million subscribers started watching boxing a little bit more regularly, that is a massive win for boxing. You can't deny that. And I personally have known a couple of people who have began to like boxing more because of these YouTube fights. Now, that's not saying it's going to do massive numbers for the sport, but listen, you can't deny the audience he brings in could translate to people who become boxing fans. I think it's a very intriguing fight, and Ben Askren, Jake Paul, they both have looked very different to what I would have thought going into this fight. Going into it, I think Jake Paul, you would have said, the more confident, the more cocky, more likely to get under someone's skin. But he's seemed a lot more relaxed in this training camp, and I feel as if he's more happy within his own skin now, because he just trains so hard, and we see the passion he's got for the sport. There's no question about that. It's almost like he doesn't have to prove to people anymore that he's Jake Paul. Don't get me wrong, he said, it's not going to last enough time for Ben Askren to be able to take me down, as if like that would be like a last option for Ben Askren. He just gets him in a chokehold or whatever. But Jake Paul hasn't been saying as much as he was for the Nate Robinson, for the Anderson Gibb fight, for the Deji fight, because I think he's so comfortable with the work he's put in now. He doesn't need to scream and shout about it. I'm sure the people who've been watching the press conferences in the build-up will have noticed a slight difference in Jake Paul's attitude and his overall aura. His confidence has just died down a little bit more. Not confidence, because his confidence is inside. He doesn't need to prove it to anyone else anymore. And I feel like that could be very dangerous, because if he doesn't need to be that loud, annoying Jake Paul that a lot of people disliked in the past, then that means he's going to have a lot of focus on the boxing, and that can cause massive problems for Ben Askren, because as we've seen, He's never been in a boxing fight before, and 99% of his MMA fights, he would go for the takedown within 5 seconds. We saw that didn't pay off against Jorge Masvidal, and that was the pinnacle of it. That was the pinnacle of his MMA career, and the first thing he did was go for the takedown. Listen, we've spoke about it enough on all the videos in the build-up to this fight. Everyone knows Ben Askren is not a striker. He's not a boxer. And having seen him on the pads, it's hard to disagree with that. He looks a little bit slow, but at the same time, he knows what he's doing. Ben Askren, it's put out those clips for a reason. Listen, they don't look great, and it's hard to back him after watching them. They do look quite slow, but at the same time, he's put them out there knowing Jake Paul is going to see them. Maybe it's a case of, yeah, that's not what he's about at all, and he's only done it to play up to the media, play up to the narrative that he's not that good a boxer and he's a bit stiff and he's a bit slow, as I've just said. Or he could be double bluffing us all, so do I think he is? Personally, no. I think he's just showing everyone what he's got, and he's just going to hope for the best, really. I don't feel as if he brings the best version of himself on Saturday and Jake brings the best version of himself, he's going to come out with a victory, because, it's hard to look like the way he does on the pads. I just don't see it in him. I think Ben Askren's in it for the money. He's got more money than he ever has for any mixed martial arts fight, in the UFC included. And I feel as if Ben Askren is certainly someone who doesn't really care about the social media side of it anymore, because let's be honest, he's going to get memed if he loses to Jake Paul as a professional fighter who's won titles in different organisations, world titles as well. That's so embarrassing, but I feel like the Jorge Masvidal loss has brought out a side in him that made him think, okay, what's the worst that can happen? Yeah, you get memed, but I've got this and I've got that, and he's going to have a lot of money as well. So I feel like it's one of them where Ben Askren's going into this fight wanting to win 100%, of course, but he's going to almost cry himself to sleep with his money. So I don't think he'll be too hurt for too long. Listen, no one can deny how embarrassing that would be, a professional fighter losing to a YouTuber. But if he does, Jake Paul's going to have some huge fights ahead of him. Look at the likes of Conor McGregor. Apparently there's already been some talks with Conor McGregor's team. I don't think it would have been serious because he was fighting Dustin Poirier before. And I don't think yet. I think Conor McGregor certainly would be up to having that fight in the future, but I don't think that was going to happen in the first place. But what I'm trying to say is, if he wins, the door is wide open for him for the next couple of years, and I feel as if Dylan Dennis doesn't even need to happen anymore. I think the KSI fight is a big fight for YouTube, but if he beats Ben Askren, KSI could almost be looked at as a step down. Like the hype it's going to get is going to be huge. There's no doubt about that. So that'll be one of the biggest fights of the year. But if he wins this, Jake Paul is into some massive things, and it really could change the layout of how boxing looks for a good few years. Because let's be honest, the undercards, the cards that Triller are putting on are going to be huge. They're going to be exciting, and I think a lot of people are going to get their heads turned. A lot of people are going to be frustrated with it, but that's why this fight this weekend is so huge for boxing as a sport. So, listen, how far can Jake Paul go? We're yet to see. This is the biggest test so far of his career, without a doubt. The size of the fight is massive, and I've just compared it to Herring Frampton. In terms of the wider audience, it's bigger, but boxing fans, I think a lot rides on it this weekend. I can't even predict it because I'm so intrigued, but it's hard to say because Ben Askren is so poor in the MMA ring at striking, but Jake Paul literally is a YouTuber, but all he's done is box. He's trained constantly to do boxing. He's been so focused on that for a couple of years now, so it really is a tough one to call. But if you guys have any thoughts on what I've said or what you think the outcome of the fight is gonna be, definitely just drop that in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to Seconds Out. We'll have a lot more content coming as well. Catch you soon.